After a surprise ambush, Major Kang and the professor are captured. As Kang sits in silence, replaying the incident in his mind, a masked figure suddenly enters the cell, asking if he's Major Kang. The stranger speaks Korean, though his accent shows it's not his native language. Without explaining much, the masked boy calmly says he's there specifically for Kang. Kang questions him, but the boy keeps his answers short. Watching him closely, Kang notices something unusual. His movements are unpolished, not like a trained soldier's, yet his tactics are sharp. The boy skillfully takes advantage of every opening, something Kang himself hadn't done during the ambush. Outside, Kang discovers that his entire unit has already been freed, all thanks to the same masked rescuer. When they express their gratitude, the boy simply says he's completing a mission. But when he finally removes his mask, Kang is stunned to see that their savior is just a young boy. 6 months later, in a quiet classroom, students are told a new classmate will be joining them. The door slides open, and the boy from the night introduces himself as Ijin Yu. Meanwhile, Daeyeon quietly thinks to herself that her brother must be in his own class by now. Moments later, her classmate bursts in with exciting news. A new transfer student has joined the third-year class, and apparently, he's quite handsome. The name immediately catches Daeyeon's attention. Could it be her brother? The same brother she believed had been lost along with their parents years ago in a plane crash? The thought fills her with emotion as she recalls the day their grandfather reunited with Ijin after 10 long years, a moment she'll never forget. Before she can gather her thoughts, a classmate interrupts her, demanding that Daeyeon bring her gym uniform later, when she politely asks what the girl will wear in the meantime. The classmate responds harshly, leaving Daeyeon speechless. Elsewhere, the homeroom teacher introduces the new transfer student Ijin Yu to the class. She explains that he's lived abroad for a long time and asks everyone to help him adjust. As Ijin walks to his seat, one student named Jae-hyung Lee watches him with clear irritation, wondering why everyone seems interested in the newcomer. Behind him, another student, Hyokjin Ju, signals to trip Ijin as he passes by. In that split second, Ijin remembers Major Kang's stern warning to avoid unnecessary fights, not for his own sake, but for the safety of others. The teacher notices the tension and asks if something's wrong, but Ijin just smiles and shakes it off. The teacher then assigns Youngchan Park to help Ijin get settled. Youngchan greets him warmly, offers a few helpful tips, and quietly warns him to stay cautious around Lee and Ju. Their first class is math, and Ijin politely thanks him. As the lesson begins, Ijin looks around the classroom, realizing how calm and peaceful life feels here compared to everything he's been through. When class ends, Daeyeon finds Ijin waiting for her outside. He gently asks if she'd like to walk home together, and she agrees. During their walk, Ijin admits that things feel a bit awkward, but reassures her that it's okay, he understands. After all, he was only 9 when the accident happened, and he barely remembers her or their grandfather. He figures it must feel even stranger for her since she was just 7 back then. Their moment is interrupted when one of the girls who had picked on Daeyeon earlier approaches and teases her for walking with a boyfriend. Daeyeon calmly replies that Ijin is her brother. When Ijin asks if the girl is a friend, Daeyeon hesitantly says she's just a classmate. The girl scoffs at the word friend, clearly annoyed. Nearby, another boy glares at Ijin and questions why he's looking at them. His tone turns aggressive as he warns Ijin to watch himself. Staying calm, Ijin observes his stance and immediately recognizes his lack of real skill. He remembers Major Kang's words again and decides to walk away. But when the boy grabs his shirt, Daeyeon quickly steps in, apologizing and explaining that her brother is still adjusting to life in Korea. Despite her effort, the situation escalates. Acting on instinct, Ijin moves quickly, shielding Daeyeon by covering her face with his blazer so she won't witness the fight, and neutralizes the attacker with precise, controlled movements. The onlookers stare in shock, unsure of what just happened. As calm returns, Ijin quietly sighs, realizing he's already broken the promise he made to Major Kang. Back when the mercenaries were still deep in enemy territory, Major Kang discussed Ijin's future with another soldier. He shared his concern about how Ijin would adapt to normal life after spending so much time in such harsh conditions. Even though he had only 6 months to train the boy, the Major hoped that what he taught would be enough to help Ijin adjust when he returned home. After the earlier confrontation, everyone at the table watched in disbelief, wondering if the boy Ijin had really fainted from just a single move. Without hesitation, Ijin calmly handled the second troublemaker as well. He then looked toward the girl who had been involved, but before he could say anything, his sister called his name. Turning away, he approached her and gently apologized for scaring her. To make up for it, he offered to buy the girl a snack, but she politely declined, and Ijin left with his sister. On their way home, Daeyeon asked if he was the one who dealt with the 2 boys. Ijin admitted it was him. She observed that he didn't seem like someone who starts fights, but pointed out that in Korea, staring at people the way he did could be seen as rude. Ijin explained that where he came from, even eye contact could be risky, depending on the situation. When Daeon asked why he had stared earlier, he said it was because it looked like they were bothering her. Back at home, their grandfather tried to stop Ijin from doing the dishes, but Ijin insisted and told him to rest instead. Watching quietly, the old man mentioned that he hoped dinner wasn't bad, since he had never been much of a cook. Ijin smiled and reassured him that every meal had been delicious. The old man's expression softened in relief, and Daeon noticed how happy he seemed, even though he didn't show it openly. She remembered that he had been taking cooking classes just to prepare for Ijin's return. When he asked her directly, Daeon also said that dinner was great, and the family settled down for the night. Later, lying in bed, Ijin thought back to what his grandfather had told him, that the past didn't matter anymore, and that each meal they shared was a celebration of his safe return. Those words echoed in his mind as he drifted off to sleep, but his dreams took him back to the moment before the plane crashed, the memory that had haunted him for years. The shock made him wake up suddenly, breathing heavily. Seeing that it was already past 7, he got up and found Daeon in the kitchen making breakfast. When he asked about their grandfather, she explained that he had gone back to work after taking time off for Ijin's homecoming. As she got ready to leave for school, she told him breakfast was ready, and he thanked her quietly. Elsewhere, 2 girls who had been giving Daeon a hard time were having a conversation. One of them revealed that the new boy, the one who stood up for Daeon, was actually her brother. For a brief moment, they considered backing off, but the other girl dismissed the idea, saying that nothing would change since her own brother and his group basically controlled the school. Not long after, Daeon was approached by Huijin. When she asked what Huijin wanted, the girl ordered her to follow. Daeon hesitated, but Huijin smirked, saying that having a brother wouldn't protect her. With a threat hanging in the air, she dragged Daeon to the school's recycling area and accused her of acting boldly just because her brother seemed strong. She warned that Ijin would soon be facing trouble because of it. Shocked, Daeon demanded to know what she meant, but before she could get an answer, Huijin suddenly struck her across the face. Realizing that her brother might be in danger, Daeon immediately ran off. Meanwhile, Huijin's brother and his group were already making their way toward Ijin. Moments later, Daeon burst into the classroom, calling out to her brother in panic. Ijin turned and immediately noticed the mark on her face and the dirt on her uniform. One of the guys laughed, teasing that her sudden arrival must mean she was worried. Huijin snapped at him to be quiet and sarcastically added that Daeon had every reason to worry because her brother was about to have a rough time. Ijin didn't respond. He simply stood there, calm and silent, carefully taking in everything around him. Earlier that day during class, Lee tosses an object at Park, while Ju casually asks for an eraser. When Park hands it over, Ju throws it right back at him, clearly trying to get a reaction. He laughs, saying Lee isn't nearly bold enough, unlike himself. Trying to prove otherwise, Lee starts getting worked up right as Ijin walks into the classroom. Seeing him, Ju mutters that Ijin is starting to annoy him, and Lee agrees that they'll need to teach him a lesson after school. Ijin quietly takes his seat and asks Park if he's okay. Park assures him he's fine, but Ijin notices both Lee and Ju staring at them from across the room. Despite the tense atmosphere, Park tries to lighten the mood, suggesting they hang out after class. He even offers to show Ijin around the area, but Ijin politely declines, saying he already has plans to walk home with his sister. This surprises Park. When he asks who his sister is, and hears that it's Daeon Yu, a first-year student, his eyes widen even more. Curious, Ijin asks if he knows her, and Park sighs, explaining that things haven't been easy for Daeon lately. He shares that she has always stood out for her intelligence and kindness, which has drawn a lot of attention from boys. Unfortunately, that attention led to jealousy from another girl named Huijin, who began picking on her. Ijin's calm expression fades as he asks if no one has done anything to stop it. Park hesitates, then explains that Huijin's brother is Gi-soo Kim, one of the most feared students in the school. Because of that, no one dares to get involved. Things got even worse when Daeon and Huijin ended up in the same class. Park says everyone is amazed Daeon still shows up every day despite everything she's been through. Trying to understand, Ijin confirms that all this started just because a boy liked Daeon instead of Huijin. Park shakes his head, saying people like Huijin don't need reasons, they just look for targets. Ijin silently recalls a memory from a dinner with his grandfather. He remembers Grandpa asking if Daeon was doing well in school. Daeon had smiled and said yes, and Grandpa proudly replied that she'd always been his brightest light teachers, only ever had good things to say about her. Returning to the present, Ijin quietly thanks Park for being honest. Park nods and tells him that everyone in school knows about it, but hopes he won't let it bother him too much. Just then, the sound of a table being kicked echoes through the room. Everyone turns to see a group of unfamiliar boys entering the classroom. Ju nervously asks why they're there. The leader, Gi-soo Kim, replies calmly that he's here to handle some business. Ju quickly whispers to Lee that while he might handle most fights, Gi-soo is on a completely different level. One of the newcomers points toward Ijin, telling Gi-soo that he's the one who took down their friends earlier. Surprised, Gi-soo looks him over, unable to believe that the quiet boy in front of him could be the one responsible. When one of his guys tries to defend their loss by saying they were caught off guard, Gisu insults them and steps forward, calling for Ijin. As Ijin stands, Park tenses up, while Lee smirks, convinced that Ijin is in real trouble now. Calmly, Ijin approaches and asks to confirm if the person before him is really Gisu Kim. Gisu responds with a smirk, mocking him in return. Then, with a flick of his hand, he signals his crew to move. Before things can escalate, the classroom door swings open. Daeon rushes in, calling out to her brother. Ijin turns and immediately notices a scratch on her face. Gisu turns his attention toward her, mocking her as the same student his sister used to boss around. Huijin adds with a smirk that Daeon must be worried now that her brother is in such a bad situation. Daeon, overwhelmed, apologizes through tears, blaming herself for getting him involved. But Ijin calmly tells her there's nothing to apologize for. In the next instant, Ijin moves, striking the first attacker with a single, controlled hit. He assures his sister that the ones who should be apologizing are standing right in front of them. Without hesitation, he takes down the remaining two just as efficiently. Gisu watches in disbelief, unable to process what just happened. The classroom falls completely silent as everyone realizes what they've witnessed. Ijin looks around at the stunned faces and, in a calm but cutting tone, thanks the group, sarcastically for making his sister's school life so miserable. Gisu Kim demands to know if Ijin is really as strong as everyone says, or just another newcomer pretending to be tough. To test him, Gisu throws a punch, but Ijin blocks it effortlessly, barely moving an inch. Refusing to back down, Gisu swings again, but in an instant he's slammed to the floor. Ijin stands over him silently, his calm gaze heavy with quiet authority. The entire class freezes. No one can believe what they just witnessed. Even Huijin, who had always mocked others with confidence, is left speechless. When Ijin steps toward her, she flinches instinctively, bracing herself in fear. But before things can go any further, Daeon steps in and gently stops her brother. Ijin turns to her and calmly asks if these are the same people who have been bullying her. Then, looking back at Huijin, he asks if they happened to leave Daeon alone that day. Huijin's shocked expression says it all. She can't believe he already knows. Daeon, worried that things will get worse, pleads with Ijin to let it go. She insists that she's fine, and after a brief pause, he respects her wish. Ijin sighs softly and offers to walk her back to her classroom instead. Back in Ijin's class, everyone is still talking about what happened. The air buzzes with disbelief. Lee leans back in his chair, silently grateful that he and Ju never actually picked a fight with Ijin. As Ijin and Daeon walk down the hallway, she looks up at him and admits that he's surprisingly skilled at fighting. Ijin agrees without hesitation. Daeon apologizes again for dragging him into her problems, pointing out that he's already had to fight twice, once yesterday and again today. But Ijin shakes his head, saying it's only natural. He begins to share a glimpse of his past, explaining that where he used to live, survival took precedence over everything else. People looked away from others' pain as long as their own families were safe. That kind of selfishness, he says, always made him wonder what family truly meant and why people valued it so deeply. Daeon gently admits that when he returned, he barely remembered her or their grandfather. Ijin nods, acknowledging that many of those memories are still missing, but he adds that it doesn't change anything, they're still family. His tone is calm and sincere, and his words bring her quiet comfort. Soon, they reach her classroom. Daeon smiles softly, waves goodbye, and heads inside. Ijin continues down the hall to his own class. Lee and Ju glance his way, no longer mocking him, only acknowledging what they've seen. Taking his seat, Ijin is greeted by Park, who quietly tells him that what he did was impressive. Elsewhere, Gisu Kim sits alone, still replaying the fight in his head. He mutters that there's something different about Ijin. He doesn't fight like any troublemaker he's ever faced. His sister Huijin storms in, scolding him for just sitting there after being caught off guard. She insists that he could easily beat Ijin if he tried again. Annoyed, Gisu cuts her off sharply, telling her that if it's so easy, she should go handle it herself. Offended, Huijin snaps back but then storms out, slamming the door behind her. As she walks down the hallway, her anger simmers. She calls them both useless for failing to deal with one person. Later, back in her classroom, Huijin mutters bitterly that Daeon must feel lucky now she no longer has to worry about being picked on, since her brother is around to protect her. But as Huijin recalls Ijin's calm yet intimidating presence, her expression falters. A shiver runs through her, and she reluctantly admits to herself that it's probably best to stay out of Daeon's way from now on. As Daeon walks home, her thoughts drift back to painful memories of running errands for Huijin, delivering food, and enduring harsh treatment afterwards. The humiliation still lingers, and she can't help but wonder if her brother's presence will finally make them stop. Lost in her thoughts, she doesn't hear Ijin calling her name until he repeats it. Snapping out of it, she turns to him. When he asks about the way home, she suggests they stop by the store to pick up groceries. Grandpa tends to get very hungry after work, and he's always happiest when he comes home to a warm dinner already prepared. Her words make Ijin pause, quietly moved. From a distance, Huijin watches them. Seeing Daeon smiling beside her brother fills her with unease. She narrows her eyes, silently wondering how long that happiness will last. At the grocery store, Daeon carefully checks items while Ijin waits nearby. Around them, a few people whisper softly, recognizing him. Daeon notices and realizes her brother is quickly becoming well known, not just at school, but even beyond. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks if he ever had a girlfriend where he used to live. Ijin is caught off guard, but admits he didn't. Daeon teases him, saying he must have been popular anyway. He smiles faintly and explains that he was always too busy. Turning the question back on her, he asks if she's ever dated. She shakes her head, saying she hasn't. She's also been too busy. Later that evening, Grandpa surprises Ijin with a brand new phone. He says that most kids have one of these days, and Daeon immediately notices it's a recent model. Grandpa explains that he's already saved both his and Daeon's numbers on it. When Daeon asks how he managed that, he proudly explains the steps and reassures her that he'll get her a new one soon too. She smiles and says her current phone still works fine. Ijin thanks Grandpa sincerely for the thoughtful gift. That night, Ijin sends his new number to Major Kang. Kang receives the message and confirms it, telling a colleague beside him that the boy finally got a phone. The man chuckles, joking that maybe it's one of those expensive new models. The next morning, as Ijin steps out of the bathroom, Daeon rushes past him in a hurry. He asks where she's going so fast, and she replies that she's late. Checking the time, he realizes she might still make it if she hurries. On her way, Daeon thinks back to the morning. Cooking extra soup for Grandpa took more time than she expected, but it was worth it to see him smile. Suddenly, she's confronted by a masked girl who accuses her of almost causing an injury by not paying attention. Even after Daeon apologizes, the group refuses to let it go, demanding a proper apology and pushing her around. One of them suggests heading to a karaoke bar to blow off steam, and the others agree. Among the voices, Daeon recognizes one instantly. It's Huijin. Later, after their karaoke session, the group laughs about how loudly they sang. As the manager opens the door to clean the room, he freezes Daeon is on the floor, weak and struggling to get up. Embarrassed, she insists she's fine and quickly gathers her things. The manager offers to call an ambulance, but she refuses and leaves quietly. Back at school, her teacher notices that Daeon hasn't shown up for class, something unusual for her. One of Huijin's friends starts to panic, worried about what might happen. Huijin, trying to stay calm, insists that Daeon's absence has nothing to do with them. Though her friend hesitates, she eventually nods in uneasy agreement. After school, Ijin grows worried when he can't find his sister. He tries calling her, wondering if she went home early. Once home, he knocks on her door. Daeon answers softly, saying she was asleep and didn't hear his call. Her voice sounds weak, and Ijin immediately becomes concerned. He asks to come in, but she insists she's fine, claiming she just has a mild fever and needs rest. Ijin offers to help if she needs anything, then turns to leave, but something catches his eye. Her shoes by the door are scuffed and stained, signs of a struggle she's trying to hide. He stares at them silently, his expression tightening as the truth begins to dawn on him. Moments later, Ijin quietly enters Daeon's room to tend to her injuries. He carefully applies first aid, asking how it feels. She admits it stings a little, and he reminds her to be more careful next time. Then, he brings up her earlier story, how she said she fell while trying to avoid a bicycle. She nods, sticking to it, but he calmly points out that her bruises look more like the result of being struck, not just dodging something. He studies her face closely, asking again if she's sure she doesn't want to see a doctor. Daeon quickly refuses, afraid that going to the hospital might reveal the truth behind what happened. Her thoughts drift back to a painful memory. Once, she tried reporting Huijin to the principal, explaining that even though Huijin had been masked, she recognized her voice. But without solid evidence, the school dismissed her claims. When Huijin's mother arrived, she lashed out at Daeon, accusing her of trying to frame her daughter. The woman even threatened to escalate the matter, demanding an apology and insisting that Daeon bring her guardians to school. That day left Daeon feeling powerless, and now, facing the same situation again, she decides to stay silent, not wanting to make things worse or worry her grandfather. After checking her injuries, Ijin notes that while nothing appears to be broken, she'll be sore for several days. Daeon sighs, hoping their grandfather won't find out. She explains that he has a weak heart and depends on daily medication. Hearing this, Ijin decides to keep everything quiet to spare him any stress. He tells her to rest, and she thanks him sincerely. As he leaves the room, she convinces herself that keeping quiet is the right choice. After all, she feels there's little the two of them can do against bullies like Huijin and her brother. Meanwhile, word of Ijin's earlier confrontation continues to spread through the school. Students are still in awe over how he single-handedly handled Gisu Kim and his gang. Some of Gisu's followers gather together, trying to plan their next move. One of them suggests challenging Ijin again, but with better coordination. While most agree, Gisu remains uneasy. He knows Ijin isn't an ordinary opponent. Their discussion is interrupted by a call from Huijin. Sounding proud, she tells her brother that she taught Daeon a lesson earlier in the day, insisting they can't let others think she's untouchable just because of Ijin. Gisu is surprised but praises her confidence. She adds that a plan is already in motion. They're preparing to face Ijin again. Just then, Gisu looks up and freezes. Ijin is already there, walking toward them with quiet intensity. The group tenses immediately. Gisu smirks, claiming he's been waiting for this. But before anyone can react, Ijin moves. His strikes are quick and precise, and in moments, Gisu's friends are already on the ground. Shocked, Gisu realizes just how skilled Ijin really is. Ijin turns to him and speaks calmly, reminding him of what he said before, that he warned him to stay away from his sister. Gisu quickly realizes that surrounding Ijin was pointless. Ijin had approached the fight with a clear strategy, taking out the ones on the edges first, then closing in before anyone could even react. Breaking the silence, Ijin calmly asks what his sister ever did to deserve being treated that way. Gisu dismisses the question, denying any involvement and throwing insults instead. Then he charges forward again, but Ijin easily dodges and brings him down in one swift motion. Without raising his voice, he questions whether someone like Daeon, who never even fights back, is really worth targeting. Enraged, Gisu goes in once more, this time with serious intent, but Ijin doesn't give him the chance to land a hit. He blocks the attack, overpowers him, and restrains him completely. With his grip firm, Ijin delivers a final warning. If he ever hears that Gisu or his sister have gone near Daeon again, he will come back. His tone leaves no doubt that he means it. Not far away, Huijin and her friend are waiting, confused about why Gisu hasn't come out yet. Huijin grows impatient until she suddenly spots Ijin walking calmly out of the bar. Shock flashes across her face. For a moment, she freezes, unsure what to do. Although nervous, she convinces herself that he can't possibly have proof linking her to what happened earlier. Trying to take control, she shouts at him not to come any closer. But as Ijin continues to approach, panic takes over. She stumbles backwards, loses her balance, and falls awkwardly, hurting her arm in the process. At that moment, Ijin's phone rings. Seeing Grandpa's name on the screen, he answers, tells him he's heading home, and walks away without another word, leaving Huijin behind. Back inside, Huijin's friend hesitantly asks if Gisu was defeated again. Gisu, still catching his breath, tells her to stay away from Daeon. She brushes off his warning and mocks him for being scared, but this time, he doesn't argue. With a serious look, he tells her that if she ever dares to hurt Daeon again, he'll be the one to stop her himself. His tone is calm, yet firm, leaving her speechless. Later that evening, Ijin returns home and sits down with Grandpa for a quiet conversation. The old man apologizes for calling him away from whatever he was doing, but Ijin assures him that it's no problem. Grandpa then brings up Daeon's injury. He says she told him she fell, but the bruise looked worse than that, and she refused to visit the hospital. With a heavy heart, Grandpa admits that raising Daeon alone was the hardest thing he's ever done. After the plane crash, he didn't know how to take care of a young girl, and spent most of his time working just to survive. Even so, Daeon grew up to be strong and thoughtful, giving him more love and support than he could ever repay. She became the reason he kept going. Seeing her hurt and hiding the truth now worries him deeply. He suspects she keeps quiet because she thinks he's too old to understand. Ijin listens carefully, then speaks gently. Even though he hasn't been back for long, he's already seen how much they care for each other. He assures Grandpa not to worry, he'll keep an eye on Daeon at school and make sure she's safe. Hearing that brings comfort. Grandpa smiles softly, grateful to have Ijin home again, and thanks him for being part of their lives. At Omnia Medical Center, Gisu's parents visit him in the hospital. His father, visibly disappointed, mutters that he always knew Gisu's recklessness would land him in trouble again. His mother scolds him immediately, saying it's unfair to talk that way when their son is hurt. Instead, she urges him to focus on finding out who's responsible for hurting their children. She also mentions Huijin's broken arm before turning back to Gisu, telling him to rest and recover. Then they leave the room. Once they're gone, Gisu asks why Huijin involved their parents at all. He's annoyed that it now looks like he ran to them for help. Huijin insists she had no choice. When he asks if Ijin was the one who injured her arm, she confirms it and storms off, vowing to make sure everyone understands exactly who they're dealing with. On the way, Mrs. Kim tells her husband she's already spoken with Mr. Cha. Mr. Kim warns her not to complicate things further, saying they should let the school handle it, but Mrs. Kim refuses to wait. In her mind, the school won't deliver justice, she wants action. Despite her husband's hesitation, she reveals that she's already given Mr. Cha all the information he needs. Mr. Cha is no ordinary man, he's a skilled fixer with a reputation that reaches far. Even his men find this situation ridiculous, saying it's embarrassing to get involved in a teenage dispute. When he learns that Mrs. Kim expects him to handle it personally, he sighs, clearly uninterested but unwilling to refuse the request. Meanwhile, at home, Ijin quietly reflects on everything that has happened, wondering if the trouble with Gisu and Huijin is finally over. Just then, the doorbell rings. From the hallway, he hears his grandfather speaking to unfamiliar men who say they're looking for Ijin. Suspicious, Grandpa asks why they've come so late. Ijin steps in calmly, assuring his grandfather and Daeon that they have nothing to worry about. He tells them he knows who the men are and that he'll be back soon. As he follows them outside, he silently wonders who they really are and what they want. The men take him to a secluded location where Mr. Cha is waiting. Since he came willingly, Ijin suggests skipping the introductions. Mr. Cha gives a small nod, and his men move to grab him. As they do, Mr. Cha calls Mrs. Kim, telling her the job is almost finished. One of the men accuses Ijin of picking the wrong fight, mentioning Gisu's name. Mr. Cha frowns at their carelessness. They weren't supposed to reveal the reason. But soon, something else catches his attention. Ijin isn't panicking. He's calm, collected, and confident. When they attack, he moves instantly, countering every strike with flawless precision. Within moments, the entire group is on the ground. Mr. Cha watches in disbelief. Everything about Ijin's movements, his technique, his timing, his composure screams experience far beyond that of a normal student. Realizing this, he steps forward himself. A fierce hand-to-hand fight breaks out between the two. Mr. Cha tries to overpower him, but Ijin reads every move and remains in control effortlessly. When Mr. Cha pulls back to catch his breath, he demands to know who Ijin really is. Ijin simply answers, "Just a high school student." Frustrated, Mr. Cha charges again, but the outcome doesn't change. In the end, he's left on the ground, defeated and shocked. For the first time, he admits to himself that he lost, and to a teenager no less. It's then that he realizes the truth. Mrs. Kim's children picked the absolute wrong person to provoke. Back at the National Assembly office, Mrs. Kim grows impatient. She urges her husband to call Mr. Cha for an update. Mr. Kim hesitates, but eventually agrees, apologizing when the call connects. Before he can say more, Mr. Cha bluntly tells them that their children have picked a fight with the wrong person. They don't understand at first until he explains that he lost. A high school student defeated a man of his skill and experience. They're stunned into silence as Mr. Cha continues, saying, "Ijin isn't just strong, there's something else about him, something beyond his age or appearance." Moments later, the door opens and Mr. Cha lies unconscious on the floor. The sight leaves everyone frozen. Then, stepping into the building with calm, steady steps, is Ijin Yu. Still on the phone with Mr. Kim, Mr. Cha senses Ijin's presence nearby and becomes even more intrigued by who this mysterious teenager really is. The fact that Ijin defeated him still weighs heavily on him. Moments later, Ijin calmly steps into the office. Huijin immediately stands up, startled, while her mother begins yelling at him. Her father, trying to keep the situation under control, tells her to calm down and asks how Ijin even managed to enter the building. Ijin explains himself, and Mr. Kim is shocked to realize he made it past both Mr. Cha and the security team. Mrs. Kim refuses to listen and angrily threatens to report Ijin for assault and trespassing. Huijin smirks beside her, certain that this will finally put an end to things. But before the call can go through, Ijin pulls out video evidence footage showing Huijin bullying his sister and harassing other students. The atmosphere in the room changes instantly. Mrs. Kim freezes mid-call, and Huijin's confidence vanishes. She demands to know how Ijin obtained the videos, but he stays silent, recalling how he managed to gather the proof. As she tries to explain herself, her father firmly tells her to stop talking. Mrs. Kim then accuses Ijin of blackmail, but he calmly clarifies that he isn't threatening anyone, he's simply showing the truth. He reminds them that their family sent men after him, and he also has proof of that incident. Mr. Kim asks if all this is really just because of his sister being hurt. Ijin replies that while parents always try to protect their children, he'll also do whatever it takes to protect his sister. Hearing this, Mr. Kim offers to cover Daeon's medical expenses, and even proposes a large settlement, but Ijin refuses. He says no amount of money can undo what happened. All he wants is to ensure his sister never crosses paths with their children again. This shocks Huijin, but her father agrees to send them abroad. Both Huijin and her mother protest loudly, but Mr. Kim silences them and turns to Ijin, asking if that will be enough. Ijin says he wants them gone by the next day, and that he'll personally inform the school. With trembling eyes, Huijin can hardly believe what she's hearing. As Ijin turns to leave, Mr. Kim demands the original copies of the videos, but Ijin gives him a cold look. It's in that moment that Mr. Kim truly realizes how dangerous and composed this boy is. Ijin refuses, saying he's not naive, and leaves without another word. When he returns home, his grandfather and Daeon rush to him, worried he might be hurt. He reassures them that the men only came to talk. Daeon says something still feels off, but he gently tells her not to worry and checks if she's feeling better. She says she's fine, and he adds softly that she'll never fall down the stairs again. Though she looks confused, she says nothing. The next morning, Daeun tells her brother she doesn't need him to walk her to class anymore since she's feeling much better. He agrees and they part with a smile. At school, she overhears her classmates talking about how Huijin and her brother are transferring abroad, saying that school life will finally return to normal. Daeun is surprised at first, then remembers her brother's words from the night before and realizes he already knew. She runs out, calls him, but can't find the right words to say. Ijin simply tells her to take care of herself, and as the call ends, tears fill her eyes. At a popular hangout spot, a group of girls gather and talk about the rumor that Huijin is moving abroad. Eong stays quiet for a while before finally confirming that their teacher mentioned it, though she hasn't heard from Huijin herself. She recalls Huijin's last message that her mother would take care of the situation with Ijin, and assumes the move has nothing to do with him. Though the girls often found Huijin annoying, they admit she was always the most generous spender among them. Just then, Huijin walks in. The girls are surprised to see her and ask if the rumors are true. Huijin sits down and explains that she'll only be gone for 1 semester. Her father promised that things would be resolved soon, so she'll be back before long. The others joke that it sounds more like a long vacation. When asked about Gizu, she avoids the question, feeling embarrassed that everything started because of Ijin. They also ask about her brother's gang, and she lies, saying she's sure they already took care of things. Inside, however, Huijin is furious. The humiliation Ijin caused still burns deeply, and she refuses to let it go. She decides to take revenge in her own way by making Daeon suffer before leaving. Her plan is to use her mother's influence to have Daeon's grandfather fired from his job, believing that this will send a clear message. But just as she's plotting, a voice interrupts. Someone says he's glad he decided to come. Huijin freezes. She recognizes Ijin immediately. He, on the other hand, acts as though he doesn't know who she's talking about. The girls, confused, ask who he is. Ijin answers calmly that he's just there to join the fun. After all, this is the same place where they once filmed Daeon. He steps forward and quietly locks the door behind him. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Mr. Kim visits Gisu and asks why his daughter hasn't been around. Gisu replies that she went out to say goodbye to her friends. Before Mr. Kim can respond, an assistant rushes in, urging him to turn on the television. On the news, a shocking report airs videos of the girls recording themselves bullying and tormenting others have been released. The footage spreads rapidly, drawing nationwide outrage. Civic groups and politicians call for strict measures and new laws to address school violence. What shocks the public even more is the revelation that the bullies are the children of candidate In-bae Kim. The news leaves the entire family in disbelief. Later that night, Mr. Cha contacts Ijin. He accuses him of making a secret deal with Mr. Kim. Ijin pretends not to know what he's talking about, though he remembers everything clearly. After watching the videos of what those girls did to his sister, he knew he needed to act quickly to protect both his identity and his family from people with that much power. Removing them from Daeon's life was supposed to be the end of it. Mr. Cha calls him petty, warning that Mr. Kim might come after him. But Ijin calmly replies that Mr. Kim will have far greater problems to deal with now. The news has exposed his deeper crimes: money laundering, bribery, and election fraud. Even his own political party has begun turning against him, demanding investigations and cutting ties. Realizing what happened, Mr. Cha grows uneasy. Somehow, Ijin had accessed the confidential files he kept hidden for his own protection data no one else should have been able to find. He looks at Ijin and asks who he really is. Ijin simply walks past and says he's just a regular high school student. Mr. Cha watches him leave and lets out a quiet laugh, fully aware that there is nothing ordinary about this boy at all. The next day in class, a few students whisper about approaching Ijin, who sits quietly at his desk. He receives a message from Daeon telling him she can walk home on her own today and encouraging him to spend some time with his classmates to relax and get used to school life. Reading the text, Ijin pauses and wonders what people actually do when they hang out. Just then, Park walks in and greets him, surprised to see he's early again. Ijin returns the greeting and Park asks if he already has plans. Remembering that Ijin usually walks home with his sister, Park is surprised when he says he's free today. Park invites him to join, and Ijin agrees. Soon after, Lee and Ju arrive, discussing the rumors circulating around school that Ijin is the reason Gisu Kim is moving abroad. They mention that the Kim family is reportedly facing serious trouble, though they doubt the move will happen immediately. Ijin simply says they heard wrong, but Lee insists he's being modest. He claims people are saying Ijin took down Gisu and his group at their own hideout, leaving Gisu too embarrassed to show up again. Ju laughs, saying that it's what Gisu deserves after acting like he owned the place. Park then comments that it must mean Ijin is actually skilled at fighting, that the classroom incident wasn't just luck. Ju suggests they all go out and celebrate after school, since they no longer have to deal with Gisu. Park says he already made plans, but when the others press him, he agrees to let them come along. Ijin checks to make sure Park is fine with it, and Park admits he's a little nervous but still in. Their conversation is interrupted when the teacher walks in with two new students, drawing everyone's attention. Park leans toward Ijin and explains who they are. The girl, Yona Sin, is the granddaughter of the chairman of SW Corporation, one of the largest companies in Korea. The boy beside her is Seokju Ko, who has been with her since childhood, and is rumored to be her personal bodyguard in training. Since most students already recognize them, the teacher skips introductions, explaining only that they recently returned from studying abroad in the United States and will now be joining the class. Ju frowns at the idea of new students showing up this late in the term, while Lee jokes that he thought Jisoo was the last challenge before graduation. Park, however, can't take his eyes off Yeona, thinking she looks even more stunning than before. As Yeona and Ko walk to their seats, Ijin glances briefly at Ko. Later, Yeona quietly asks who Ijin is, wondering if he might be a celebrity. Ko checks his report, but finds no mention of him. He tells her that Ijin wasn't included in the background evaluations he received, but promises to look into it further. When Yeona and Ijin's eyes meet, she smiles at him, but he looks away, leaving her momentarily disappointed and curious as to why he ignored her. After class, Park suggests they visit a nearby game room, calling it a great place to relax. Ijin thinks back to the information he once received from Major Kang about game rooms and decides it sounds harmless enough. Park mistakes his silence for disinterest, but keeps encouraging him to try it out. Meanwhile, Ko finishes his research and updates Yeona. He reports that Ijin is 18 years old and that Daeon, the girl from their school, is his younger sister. Yeona is surprised by the connection. Ko then suggests they should investigate further to understand who Ijin really is. After spending some time at the game room, Ijin heads home. As he scrolls through his group chat, he remembers the earlier conversations. Not long after, Daeon calls out to him. He turns to see her returning from the store, carrying snacks and groceries. When he offers to help, she politely declines. She asks if he hung out with his classmates, and he confirms that he did. Relieved, she says she's glad he's getting along well, especially after the recent fight. Ijin then asks how her school day went, and she says it's been more enjoyable than it has been in years. When she mentions waiting for her grandfather to eat together, Ijin asks if he can join them. During dinner, her grandfather compliments Daeon's cooking, and Ijin agrees. Afterwards, he returns to his room and receives a call from Major Kang, who checks in to ask how school is going. Jokingly, Kang wonders if anything exciting has happened, but Ijin explains the situation calmly. Kang offers to send help if needed, though Ijin assures him everything is under control. The next day, Lee, Ju, and Park talk about Ijin again. Ju teases him for being bad at games, while Lee brings up a hypothetical match between Ijin and Seokju Ko. Ju admits Ijin is skilled, but says Ko has been trained in combat from a young age, giving him an advantage. Lee adds that Ko once handled 30 opponents on his own, without much effort. Park then wonders why Ko didn't step in when kidnappers once targeted Yeona. Ju explains that the kidnappers were retired soldiers, which made the situation far more difficult. Later, Ijin and Ko cross paths and lock eyes. Ko confronts him, asking why he's hiding his identity and mentioning that he knows about Gisu and Huijin moving away. Ijin responds that there was a misunderstanding, but he wasn't responsible for their transfer. Ko reveals that he contacted the school Ijin was supposed to have attended overseas, but there was no record of him. Ijin remains silent, meeting his gaze calmly. Around the same time, Yeona runs into Daeon and is surprised to see that she's back in Korea. Yeona is surprised to find out that she has returned to school. Daeon explains that she started the previous day and is now in her brother's class. Curious, Yeona asks about him, not remembering that Daeon even had a brother. Daeon calmly shares that her family once believed her brother was gone, but 6 months ago, they received news that he had survived. He had lost his memory after the accident, which was why he couldn't contact them, but someone recently helped him reconnect with the family. When Yeona hesitantly asks if she's sure he's really her brother, Daeon confirms that they even did a DNA test. The conversation turns when Daeon asks why Yeona seems so interested in him. Yeona falls quiet, secretly wondering if Ijin might already have someone special. Meanwhile, Ijin confronts Seokju Ko, asking what he's trying to imply. Ko questions what could be so important that Ijin would go as far as to change his records just to attend this school. Ijin challenges him to bring proof. Though Ko suspects the truth after asking around, he admits internally that he has no real evidence. Ijin turns the question back on him, asking why Ko is so invested in his past. Ko claims he's only being cautious about a mysterious student who could be a threat. Ijin simply replies that he just came back home, then walks past him. Ko watches closely, more convinced than ever that Ijin is hiding something. Later in class, Ijin reflects on how quickly Ko managed to gather information, despite being at school for only a day. When some classmates suggest hanging out again, he declines, saying it's his father's birthday. They understand and go without him. Ko later reports to Yeona, saying that he believes the DNA test might have been tampered with. He also reveals that Daeon had faced bullying from Gi-soo and Hoojin Kim over the past 2 years. Yeona is shocked and begins comparing Ijin to her own family. While her siblings always distanced themselves, Daeon's brother came back after years apart to protect her. Still, something doesn't add up. If Ijin's goal was deception, why would he stay quiet and draw no attention? Yeona starts to wonder if he's after something else, perhaps the untouched insurance payout from the accident. Ko mentions that the funds have grown over time, but notes that their grandfather returned Ijin's share after his return. Yeona starts to worry that Daeon might be in danger, living with someone who might not truly be her brother. After school, Daeon gently asks Ijin about his life after the accident, but assures him he doesn't have to answer. He opens up a little, saying he went through a lot and had to survive in a foreign place where he didn't even speak the language. When she asks if he ever had someone close during that time, he admits he didn't. Daeon then mentions that Yeona is now in her class. When Ijin looks curious, she explains that Yeona had always been kind before moving to the US, and she was happy to see her again. Casually, she adds that Yeona even asked if he had a girlfriend, leaving Ijin visibly surprised. That evening, they celebrate their grandfather's birthday. He's touched, saying that having Ijin back is the greatest gift he could ever receive. Daeon worries the gift might have been too costly, but Grandpa reassures her that nothing matters more than having his grandchildren by his side. Later, Daeon gets a call from Yeona, and Ijin tells Grandpa he'll step out for a moment. Concerned about the time, Grandpa worries, but Daeon explains that Yeona just wants to chat for a bit. Grandpa smiles, wondering aloud if her kind friend has finally returned to their lives. Later that evening, Ijin sits alone, reviewing data on his computer. He can't shake the thought of why SW Corporation is investigating him and recalls Ko's earlier questions. Grandpa walks in, mentioning that he's heading out for a while. Ijin immediately guesses that Grandpa is worried about Daeon and steps in, suggesting that he stay home instead. He says he'll handle it himself, pretending he needs to stop by the store anyway, and that he'll walk Daeon home afterwards. Meanwhile, Daeon and Yeona are spending time together. Yeona asks if Daeon has ever thought about studying abroad. Daeon smiles and admits it's never crossed her mind it would be too expensive, and being away from Grandpa for years isn't something she could handle. Yeona quietly admires how selfless she is. The topic then shifts back to Ijin, and Yeona finds herself conflicted. She remembers Ko's warning that the information they uncovered doesn't prove Ijin isn't her brother. It only shows that parts of his identity are unclear. Ko believes this information is more for Yeona's protection than Daeon's, but Yeona still feels uneasy. She wants to tell Daeon, but hesitates because she looks genuinely happy whenever she talks about her brother. It's the brightest Yeona has seen her in years. Just then, Ijin arrives, but Ko intercepts him, telling him to wait. It's clear Ko is uneasy, worried the girls might say something important. Ijin immediately picks up on it and suspects that Ko is trying to keep him from hearing their conversation. Ko insists that the girls need more time and tries to delay him. Suddenly, a speeding car rushes past them, and in an instant, both girls are taken. Before anyone can react, the vehicle disappears from sight. Ijin and Ko give chase but are unable to stop it. Catching his breath, Ijin asks where they might have been taken, but Ko turns on him, accusing him of being involved. Ijin brushes off the claim, saying he doesn't have time for baseless arguments. Ko quickly calls SW Corporation's security team, insisting that Ijin stay put until his identity can be verified. But Ijin refuses, determined to find his sister himself. He tells Ko he can either stay behind or come along as he has a car. Somewhere else, a man reports to Mr. Cha that Ijin has come to see him. News of Yeona's kidnapping reaches a mysterious woman. Upon hearing it, she smiles faintly, realizing the rumors were true. Calmly, she wonders if Yeona's grandfather will still go through with an important deal despite the abduction. Her associate believes he will, and she hopes he doesn't lose his nerve now that Yeona's safety is at risk. Meanwhile, Ijin and Ko meet with Mr. Cha. Ko immediately recognizes the man and is surprised that Ijin knows someone with such a dangerous reputation. Without wasting time, Ijin asks Cha for information. Cha hesitates, explaining that he avoids crossing powerful groups like SW Corporation, as the consequences never truly disappear. But when Ijin reveals that his sister was taken alongside Yeona, Cha's attitude changes. He admits that someone recently offered him a job connected to the case, which he declined, but he still knows the crew that accepted it. They're operating out of Incheon. Before they leave, Cha gives Ijin his number and says he'll reach out once he checks the location. Seeing a bike outside, Ijin borrows it to set off immediately. Ko warns him not to act alone, but Ijin insists. Time is short, and while Yeona might be kept alive for leverage, there's no guarantee his sister will be. Reluctantly, Ko decides to follow him in his car. At the hideout, Daeon regains consciousness. Yeona apologizes, feeling guilty that Daeon got caught up in something meant for her. Their captors soon enter the room, telling Yeona to stay quiet if she wants things to end quickly. Our story ends here. Thank you for watching. Love Manhwa? Subscribe and be part of a family that lives every story together.